Probability is one of those most feared subjects in Maths Level 2 Functional Skills and GCSE, and being able to calculate these is going to really help you pass your exam. In this video I'll show you how to calculate the more basic probability questions as well as probability of combined events, and it really helps if you actually think of these as fractions questions. So probability questions are just fractions, decimals and percentages questions. So if you're confident at being able to convert a fraction into a decimal and a percentage and convert them back, you'll be absolutely fine with probability if you can understand what the question is wanting you to do. The reason being, quite often probability will want you to give your answer as a fraction, a decimal or a percentage. There's a video linked at the end of this one. If you're unsure of how to convert these, do go and watch that video. But as a basic example of probability, when throwing a die, there are 6 possible outcomes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Now there's always dice questions when we're dealing with probability. But essentially, each one of these has got a 1 out of 6 chance of happening. And I always like to think about fractions or word fractions as being out of something. So 1 out of 6. You can write these in fraction form. 1 out of 6. So the probability of rolling a 6 is 1 out of 6. Probability of rolling a 1, you get the gist. Now if I reworded that question and I said what's the probability of rolling a 1 or a 2, you've actually got a 1 out of 6 plus 1 out of 6, which is 2 out of 6. So there's 2 possibilities out of a total of 6. You can simplify that fraction to 1/3. Hopefully that makes sense. But like I say, fractions questions, that's all these are. And you'll actually find there's a lot of subjects within maths that can be done as probability questions. So for example, here we've got a percentages question. So for this particular question, it's express one amount as a percentage of another. I do have a video on that. Do check that out if you need to know. But essentially, all you've got to do is put the information into a fraction and convert it into a percentage. So that's why I say having that knowledge of how to turn a fraction into a percentage and decimal is really, really important for functional skills because it applies for other topics as well. But we can actually reword this one. So at the moment, it says Lottie plays basketball. She does some shooting practice. She takes 75 shots. 33 of these go in the basket. What percentage of her shots go in the basket? We could probably reword that bit and say, what's the probability that she'll score her next shot? It's exactly the same working out. So we've got 33 out of 75. We need to pop that as a fraction, like so. And then if I get the calculator up on the screen, we can then turn that into a decimal and then turn it into a percentage. So if we wanted to express that as a percentage, as a probability, we'd be looking at 44%. Now the next question at the bottom here, what's 75 as a fraction of 125? Give your answer in its simplest form. With this one, it's just a fractions question. Now we could reword that to be a probability question. We could say if I've sold 125 raffle tickets, 75 of them are pink, what's the chance that I pick out a pink raffle ticket? We can work it out in exactly the same way. Let's just put it as a fraction, as is intended for the question as it is. And then we've just got to simplify it down. So if you're familiar with simplifying fractions, you should be okay with this one. But certainly, if not, I do have a video for that on the channel as well, so do check it out. So there's a few different ways you can simplify fractions. What I'm going to do with this one is just turn it into a decimal. So 75 divided by 125 gives us 0.6. The first decimal place within a fraction is called tenths. So that one is 6 tenths. And we can simplify that down again if we halve it, give us our answer of 3/5. So the probability of picking out a pink raffle ticket here is 3 out of 5. So as you can see, probability is just a fractions question with a little bit of context. So we've got a little practice question. Have a go at this one. It's quite a tricky one. Just read it carefully and then let me know in the comments if you got this one right. Pause the video, come back when you've got an answer to see the working out. So with this one, Liam downloads films from the internet. The table shows the number of films he downloaded last month. He chooses one of these films at random. What's the probability that he chooses an action film that's at least an hour long? So we can look at the action films. That's all we need to be looking at. We can see needs to be at least 1 hour long. So we've actually got two cells within the table here, one that's exactly 1 hour long, so there's two of those, and one that's more than an hour long. We can see we've got one movie in there. So in total here, we do have a total of 28 videos, which we can see here, and 3 of those are action films that are at least an hour long. Now with this particular question, it doesn't state whether we need to show this as a decimal or a percentage. It's giving you a little bit of free rein. If it doesn't specify, just leave it as a fraction and simplify your fraction down. Problem with this one is we can't simplify that one any further. So the probability of it being an action film that's at least an hour long is 3 out of a total of 28. And that's all there is to it. So your bottom number is always how many there are in total. The top number is how many are we talking about. So then we move on to probability of combined events. Essentially, combined events questions are the probability of one thing multiplied by the probability of another. Now I'm going to need my calculator for this one because we're dealing with decimals. So it says there are 10 volunteers in the community archaeology group. Probability that they all attend on a Saturday is 0.35. The probability that they all attend on a Sunday is 0.12. The site is open next weekend. Calculate the probability that all the volunteers will attend both Saturday and Sunday next week. Give your answer as a percentage. So for this one, essentially what we're looking at, whether it's combined events, like I've already said, it's probability of one thing multiplied by the probability of another. So we've got these two separate probabilities. We've got the probability of this one happening, the probability of that one happening. What's the probability that both happen? So when we're dealing with decimals, as we do get quite often in NCFE, they like to word their questions with decimals. We've just got to multiply those two probabilities together to give us our probability as a decimal. So this is the answer, and we need to turn it into a percentage. So to turn a decimal into a percentage, just times it by 100, and that gives us an answer of 4.2% that everybody will attend on both days. Now, City and Guilds, on the other hand, prefer to do those questions as fractions. So we're going to multiply fractions together. So you get a little bit of extra off-topic stuff here. A commuter uses a bus and a train to get to work. The train is more than 5 minutes late 1 out of 6 times they use it. The bus is more than 5 minutes late 3 out of 5 times they use it. What's the probability that both the bus and the train will be more than 5 minutes late? So again, we've got the probability of one thing, the probability of another. What's the probability that they both happen? We're just multiplying them together. So exactly the same method as we had before, apart from this time we are dealing with fractions. So to multiply fractions together, you just got to multiply your numbers together. So 1 times 3 equals 3. 6 times 5 is 30. Whenever you're given an answer as a fraction, you need to simplify it. So we're going to divide that one by 3, and that will give us an answer of 1 out of 10. So the answer to that question is 1 out of 10. But that's all there is to it for combined events. These are the ones people tend to struggle with. Now, if it's giving you multiple probabilities, it's a combined events question. That's how you can identify it as a combined events question in your exam. And all you've got to do is multiply them together. That's it. So we've got a practice question for you all to have a little go at now. So a call center aims to deal with calls in less than 5 minutes. Calls come in randomly. The table shows data for the calls made to the center. Work out the probability that the next call will be a customer complaint that's completed in under 5 minutes. Give your answer as a fraction in its simplest form. Pause the video, have a little go at it, and then let me know in the comments if you got this one right. I'll dive in and show you how to work this one out. Okay, so it wants to be a customer complaint that's completed in under 5 minutes. Now, this is a non-calculated question again from City and Guilds, and because it's focusing here on customer complaints, we can ignore the new business. We don't need to be worrying about that stuff. So all we've got here are our two fractions that we need to multiply together to give us our answer. So 1/4 times 1/2. So 1 times 1 is 1. 4 times 2 is 8. And that is the answer to that question. Easy as that. So When I teach this question to people in my day job, they normally struggle with interpreting the table. They just see all these different fractions and they get all confused. But just read the question carefully. It's only bothered about customer complaints. So ignore the new business information there. So that just brings us back to our final exam question that we had at the start. So this is from an NCFE paper. There's 15 players in Lottie's basketball team. The table shows information about the players. The coach chooses a forward at random to take a shot. What's the probability that the player chosen is over 1.8 meters tall? Give your answer as a fraction and as a decimal. We need to be focusing on some keywords within this question. The coach is just choosing a forward to take a shot. What's the probability that they're 1.8 meters tall? So we can kind of pinpoint where these particular players are going to be. So we're going to be looking at the forward players and only those who are over 1.8 meters. So we've just got that as our top number of our fraction, 3. There's only 8 forwards altogether. So like I mentioned, the coach is only looking at the forwards. So we can ignore all the other players here. So out of our forwards, we've got 8 of them, 3 of them are over 1.8 meters tall. So as a fraction, it's 3 over 8. And to convert that fraction into a decimal, it's just 3 divided by 8 gives us 0.375. And that's it. So hopefully this has helped you realise that probability isn't that bad. But do let me know if you've got any questions or comments that you want to make about this, and I'll help you if I can. But that's it. Do click on the video on the screen now for fractions, decimals and percentages and how to convert one to the other. And I'll see you over there.